Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 77. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Today's guest, I was just saying off air, I've been a sports guy my entire life, so this name has weight in my world. So this is going to be a fun conversation. So name and who you are.
Jesse Lumsden, who I am. That's I'm trying to figure that out for myself.
It's what's really interesting. So I had a gal on here, Candice Ward, photographer. So she shoots for the Stamps, Roughnecks, Flames. And I had a different question when she came on.
Yeah.
Before her, I said, like, tell me what you're up to. And she's like, what I'm up to? She's like, no. She's like, who I am.
Yeah.
And that's, so she was like 20 episodes ago. So now that's kind of how I ask. And that response gets very interesting.
It does. And, I think I've lived a lot of lives. So who I am changes, daily. And it's, interestingly enough, I've come across, and it's becoming more and more, I wouldn't say mainstream, but more discussed. But I have a friend who's a facilitator at an ayahuasca retreat. And a lot of what he has talked to me about, and friends who have gone and experienced this firsthand, is that's the big question, right? And especially in a world like today, and I can't really compare it how it used to be when I wasn't around, but it just seems as though the way the world works now, who you are and what you show people can be two very, very different things.
For sure. And
it becomes now magnified because of our little black mirrors that we carry around with us. So who I am right now is a guy trying to figure it out that's retired from 2 different careers onto another and has 2 young kids under his wings, trying to do his best to raise contributing members of society.
Which is like, dude, that's why I love sitting down with athletes, and because I love the conversation when it's over. That transition, and it's just from Olympians to pro athletes. I think that discussion around when it ends, and then finding your who,
it's hard.
Yeah,
because it's very easy to get wrapped up. Being an Olympic athlete or being a professional athlete is not like any other career. It's rooted in what you do and what you're supposed to do as a child, which is play. And then you are fortunate enough to get to carry that into a space that allows you to earn a living. In some sports, it's a much better living than others. From the CFL, which was a fine wage, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
It's not like professional sport on the international stage of, MLS, or not MLS, but, Champions League or NFL or NHL or anything like that. But to get a paycheck to play football was my dream as a kid.
Yep.
So I never really complained too much about, how many zeros were on it. And then going back to amateur sport, where it is really government carding, prize money, and sponsorship money, which is how you earn your keep. But either way, it's the opportunity to collect those checks to do what we all grow up doing as a kid, which is tobogganing, playing backyard football and catch and stuff like that. And that is the dream. So it's easy to get tied up, your identity to get tied up into that, because it has such a close connection to what you loved doing at such a young age.
Yeah.
And it's hard to then, and not to too far veer or too far off, especially with Olympic athletes, where you have athletes that start at the international level pre-high school in some sports, come to an end of a career with all these learned skills, and really no idea how to apply them into something else.
Yeah.
So the COC and Game Plan, which are COC, Canada Olympic Committee, and Game Plan, which is an initiative to support athletes in their transition out of sports to help identify those things. Because when it's over, it's like, now what? Well, who am I? Well, I'm an athlete that may or may not have won a medal. And just because you come out on top, I never won an Olympic medal, doesn't make that transition any easier. Sometimes it can be harder because there's certain expectations that you may have put upon yourself or other people have put up on you.
Yep.
What it's supposed to be like after you become a world champion, Olympic champion. In the States, it's different.
Yep.
The market is different. In Canada, it's different. It's smaller.
Yep.
there's not too many superstars out there that come from the Olympic world. And you could probably name most of them, which are the household figures, on one hand.
Mm-hmm.
The Tessa Virtues and Scott Moyers,
mm-hmm.
Haley Wickenheiser, just to name a couple quick ones. But so I think the big thing becomes then at such a young age, figuring out who you are is very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's never, and then what you do is second to that. And what you do is, I've come to the realization, it's never going to be as good as it was, because again, I got to play,
dude. Yeah.
But you have to be, use what you learned, which is all sorts of attributes and all sorts of skills, like courage.
Yep.
And you got to be courageous to try something else,
mm-hmm.
and then just give it an honest shot.
Yep.
And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, because it's okay.
Yep.
So it is an interesting question, and that was a big rabbit hole we went down to kick things off.
No, but dude, that's why I find the show so interesting, is because you just get into it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think what I was going to ask you is, are these discussions being had with athletes? When you were growing up, were people talking to you about, like, you may not see what you're learning, but you're learning all these wild things. And when it does end,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to go through this, and potentially things might happen. Are those open discussions, or is it like these COC programs that are going to actually maybe facilitate them?
I think so Game Plan runs activations all throughout the year, and especially after the Olympics, where that hard line of what the heck do I do now with my life becomes very, very real. I remember taking meetings when I was playing with the Ticats, so I was in my mid-20s, and I had a degree in geography, environmental science, that I had planned on not using a single day in my life. But having conversations with people in Hamilton, in the professional community, about this, but I was too caught up in the moment.
Yep.
And I think that's probably consistent across 99% of people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few out there that understand that this moment is fleeting and it's not going to be around.
Yep.
It wasn't really until I had signed with the Edmonton Eskimos, and then I blew my shoulder out in the first game of the season, which was the shoulder injury that put me out the previous 2 seasons as well. And that's when I had just, prior to that season, so this happened in June, July, in February, I was touching a bobsled for the first time. And the plan in place was go to Edmonton. I'd signed with them as a free agent, finish the season, win the Grey Cup, then go win an Olympic medal.
Dude, the plan was good.
It was a great plan. And then it all went to shit real quick.
Yeah.
Thankfully, lessons in life, from coaches, and I repeat this a lot. A coach had said, you're allowed to feel sorry for yourself for 24 hours. And it's time to pick yourself back up and figure out what's next. And it was more around a football game, but it resonates with a lot of different things.
Yep.
So cried a lot of tears that night, and woke up the next day, said, if I want to make an Olympic team it's July and the Olympics are in February, I got some work to do. And we got to work. I was on the table getting operated on a week later. I was spending my time back and forth in Calgary. It really, that moment though, is what was the kick in the butt to make me realize that this doesn't last forever. And once I had sunsetted the football career, then it became bobsleigh.
Yep.
And free time on how to start getting myself ready for what's after bobsleigh. So it took a kick in the ass.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'm not sure, how long it would have taken me.
Yep.
Like other athletes, when I was going to my last Olympics, I had a job. I had a career set up and a 5-year plan around it. So, but I had to get my ass kicked to put that in place. Yeah.
So cool, man. Like I said earlier, I love talking to athletes. This is like, I was never a pro, but I just like the psyche behind it is just fascinating. So the gist of the show is you and I have already gone off on a tangent, which is awesome.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's great. That's why I love this. But I like the guests to go back and kind of tell their story, where they grew up, how they grew up.
Sure.
What inspired you, how your parents kind of pushed you along, and then we'll kind of weave our way to where you are today.
Sure. I was born in Edmonton. My dad played professional football for the Eskimos and won 3 Grey Cups in the 80s when they were on their 5 dynasty trip. Yep.
Was Warren Moon
Warren Moon was there for part of it.
Okay.
Tom Wilkinson, Brian Kelly.
Yep.
Didn't spend much time in Edmonton. I think we had left. He had retired in 84 due to an injury. And then we were in Toronto for a year, Ottawa for a year. He was the general manager of the Ottawa Rough Riders.
Yep.
And then got the gig for the GM role in Hamilton. And so we moved to Burlington, which is about 25 minutes from Hamilton. And that's where the formative years of my life was spent. You know, moved there grade 6. So went through high school there.
Yep.
Played football in Ottawa as a tyke. And
did you have was there even like a choice? You know, with your dad being a football, I'm sure you didn't
there was resistance for me to play football.
Just because of what you're looking at.
Yeah, just like it was one of those things that I think it was always my choice on what I wanted to do. When I played football at a really, really young age, well, my dad coached I believe it was the Mosquito age group, and this is when Jesse Palmer was playing in Ottawa for the Myers Riders, and there wasn't a division for 7-year-olds. So I practiced with the team. I wasn't allowed to play, but I practiced with them. That was my first exposure to football. And the next year, they introduced the Tyke group, which is 8 and up.
Yep.
And I played 1 year. And then my parents pulled me out. And they said, okay, you can play again when you go to high school if you want. But other than that, hockey, soccer, whatever you want, just not football.
Yep.
So, pardon me.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes me to high school. The first thing I do is sign up for football.
Just because?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved the sport. I used to... Sunday NFL football. That was my jam on Fox. I like the Fox crew. I wasn't a huge fan of the ESPN crew.
Yeah.
I like the Fox crew.
Who was on Fox then?
It's still Terry Bradshaw, who's still there.
Looking like he's 80.
Yeah, well, he looked the same back then too. So who else was on the panel? I just remember.
Just these characters.
Yeah, I remember Terry big time.
Yep.
But
Jim Brown?
no.
I can't remember.
Either way, it was just they were more animated.
Yep.
They had more fun, probably because a few of them were former players themselves. And so I went to Nelson High School, signed up for the junior football team. My coach, I just forgot his last name, and I can picture him. Nick is his first name. And I would never call him Nick to his face. Coach.
Yeah.
Used to joke with me that I was like this ugly duckling. Probably because I was tall, awkward, lanky. But he always kept saying, someday you're going to turn into this white swan kid. You're going to, and
no way.
Never really thought anything about it, but always
he could see
joked about it. Maybe he did, or maybe, he knew my pedigree too. So there's big shoes to fill. And when I did come into the high school scene, it was... Everybody knew.
That name has some weight.
It had some weight, for sure.
Yep.
Never really bothered me either, because I was just really having a lot of fun.
Were you doing before...
no, it's okay.
Before you get to high school, are you playing every other sport?
I played a lot of hockey.
And good at it?
I was pretty good at it, but I was never passionate about it. I played AA comfortably.
Okay.
I dreaded going to AAA tryouts because... If I had applied myself to hockey as I did with football,
could have done some damage.
Maybe. I mean, you never really. I'm not going to be the guy to say I would have been in the show, but it would have been interesting to see, an interesting experiment for sure. So I really enjoyed. My dad coached hockey, and he loved hockey. I haven't watched a hockey game in I don't know how long.
No way.
I love playing. I still play pickup once in a while.
You do?
Yeah.
With some buddies? Or
Awesome. There's a team. I'm a spare this year just because life's busy, but we have a team called the Press Box Kings. It's at the COP League, and it's a bunch of ex-Olympians. And
no way.
It's guys like Gilmore Jr., who grew up playing hockey, then transitioned into speed skating, and Ben Hebert, who's got a curler, who's got real good hands, to guys who have never played before. So it's fun that way.
Yep.
So played a lot of hockey, played soccer, softball, baseball, just kind of everything.
Yep.
But I knew literally day one, high school,
You knew exactly what was going to happen.
Go find the junior football sheet, put my name on the list, show up for equipment check, get it going, and away off to the races.
And then tell your parents, hey, I'm signed up. And they're like, okay, that's what the plan was, or the rule was.
That was the rule, so I was following it.
What do you think have you asked them, or do you know why they put that in place?
I think they just wanted me to expose me to other sports. I mean, one of the things that we're seeing now, and I have a number of friends who played professional hockey, and they experienced the same thing. And the same thing as Wayne Gretzky went through. Played hockey, loved hockey. Hockey season's over. He couldn't wait to get his baseball glove on.
Yeah.
And we're in a world now where people believe that you need to have such focus, but the problem is that focus can be severely detrimental to not only the development of the athlete, but the athlete's ability to enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah.
Make really, really, really good athletes as kids. Get them playing and exposed to movement and exposed to different scenarios and environments that, and then if they choose to go back to something at an appropriate time, and there's a time and an age for everything, you might miss a window, but you can also be too early for that window.
Yep.
They're much more developed cognitively, physically.
Yep.
They're able to just understand things better, move better. It's going to allow them to be a better athlete within the realm of specification.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting conversation. So this year I coached my nephew.
Yeah.
He's U9 hockey.
Yep.
For Trails West, and I grew up playing hockey, and back then it was always same to your point. When hockey's over, it's over.
It's over.
And there was this giant off season,
and
all these youngsters right now, these 8-year-olds, the discussion around the rink is, well, he's going to play spring hockey and then do camps all summer. And at 9 years old, you know what the stat is. Nobody's going pro. Nothing. It's not happening.
No.
And there it is. It's like an 11-month hockey life.
Yep.
Which
leads to burnout in a lot of kids real quick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do to get better at hockey without playing hockey at that age.
For sure. So football. So you're coach is on you, the white swan, and then what starts to happen?
Ugly duckling.
The ugly.
I was grade 9, and junior was grade 9, 10, and 11. And back when I was in high school, in Ontario, we had OAC as well, which is grade 13.
Okay.
OAC was meant to be like a prep year going into university.
Yeah.
So I had 5 years of high school. Played grade 9 and 10 at Nelson, and then the Halton board went on strike. So I got the opportunity to get a scholarship to go to a private school for a year, Trinity in Port Hope, Ontario, and got there and skipped junior, went and played senior in grade 11.
Just good enough?
I guess so.
Yep.
So don't really remember much about that season, to be honest with you. It wasn't great. I played hockey for the school as well. It's probably one of the best hockey years I've had. I led this team in scoring that year.
No way.
Yeah. No, in points. Sorry, not scoring, in points. But a really interesting experience. But I never really felt like I fit in anywhere in high school. My best friends were non-athletes, and I was kind of like just the normal guy. To give you the example, here's the example. So I leave grade 9 and grade 10, and I have a really good core group of friends, and I'm very fortunate for the friends that I have, and I'm still dear friends with them today. And my parents have always said, the friends that you have had throughout your life are amazing people. And they knew I went away to private school for a year, but when I came back, because it was 1 year, I was like, I told my folks, I had the scholarship for the 1 year, but then there was going to be money, and it was a lot of money, and I wasn't enjoying it as much enough for my parents to be forking over that kind of cash. Mm-hmm. So I get back, and people were like, I didn't see you around much last year. So I wasn't here. So it just goes like, that's kind of, but during that year, that was in 1998. Fun enough you say that, when you're like, what happened in 1998?
So random.
Yeah. But I was a tall, lanky kid at 16 years old. I had my ears surgically pinned back before going away to private school because they stuck out a lot.
No way.
It was the last year that OHIP would cover that type of surgery because it's technically plastic.
Okay.
It's a part of the plastics category. And I started working out, started lifting weights, And I grew into myself, and I came back definitely a different person and carried myself differently. And that's when I had made the decision and started to have the confidence that I'm going to go play professional football. And I started to formulate a plan to actually do that.
No way. And do you think it was, besides having the passion for it, growing up around it, does it feel more realistic? Is there any piece of that works into this equation? With your family, the family name, you've seen it play out. Does it seem like a more of a realistic goal? Because even as a Canadian, like all the ball players are out there, it's still a small percentage that actually make it to the CFL.
Did it seem more realistic? I didn't ever think of it from that perspective. I was fortunate to have my dad there as an asset and a resource.
Yeah.
If I asked.
Yep.
And I had to ask. So when I was getting ready for grade 12, I started asking my dad about training programs and what I should be doing. And there was a small group of us in our high school that was taking football seriously. That summer we started actually, and my girlfriend at the time who played for the high school team, soccer team, we started doing sprint training. And I remember him writing programs out based off of VHS tapes from Michigan State University track and field programs. And that became the foundation for really starting to build on the base. I feel very fortunate, and I won the genetic lottery. My dad played professional football. My mom is 5'11" and played basketball. Her brother played in the NHL. My dad's dad was the second or the third at the Marquette University 4x1 track relay team.
It's deep.
It's deep. I got lucky, and I was able to put hard work behind that, which allowed me to then develop further and further into a better football player. The first goal was to go play in the NCAA. That's what I wanted to do. And I was getting interest, and I still have it. My dad actually gave it to me. He found it and gave it to me recently, probably like a year ago, but all of the letters of interest that I was getting from schools.
Where were they coming from?
All over, but you could tell which ones are like just, pumping them out.
Yep.
And some of them were more thoughtful. Got some really thoughtful ones from Buffalo, Wake Forest, got a handwritten letter from Notre Dame, Illinois. Those were kind of like the bigger ones.
Yeah. They were like, holy.
Yeah. And I went down to Wake Forest and went through, also a program that they, in line with a few of my high school friends. So I went down for a visit and participated in the summer camp. And funny enough, Jim Caldwell was the head coach at the time at Wake Forest. And Jamie Barisi was the offensive coordinator, who went later on to be the offensive coordinator for the Hamilton Tiger Cats when I was playing there. So small world.
No way.
And he's got some cool stories of remembering me at that camp and what was going on there.
So cool.
Yeah. But that dream didn't happen. Any real conversation, it was come down, red shirt, become a safety or a linebacker. And I was like, I'm a running back. It's the only thing I've ever done. It's the only thing I want to do. So the interest in Canada was strong, and had real interest from Western, St. Mary's, UBC, and McMaster. And Greg Marshall was the head coach of McMaster. He came through Western and was a hard-nosed coach that really wanted to take a program that was struggling and put them on top. And he also played in the CFL just after my dad had played.
What was I feel like I remember that name for some reason.
Yeah, there was two of them too. There's Greg and Blake, is his older brother, who also played. But what I really liked about when I met with Greg on my recruiting trip and Coach Gavaya, who was the recruiter and special teams coach, they were just very honest with me. We had at Mac at that time, Ben Chapdelaine, the quarterback, had just won the Heck Crichton 2 years. Not the year that I was being recruited, the year before that. The year that I was being recruited, Coach Uedu was the running back and had just won the Heck Crichton. And the Heck Crichton is essentially the Heisman of Canadian college football. And they had the sort of shared running back and slot back was Kyle Pierre, who is an OUA All-Star as well. So we have a Canada All-Star, we have an OUA All-Star in the backfield, and that's where I decided to go.
Based on what? On seeing an opportunity to learn?
Yeah.
And the coach, like his thought process?
He said, I'm not going to start like I would have potentially somewhere else as a freshman, but you're going to come in, you're going to learn, and you're going to return kicks, and you are going to carry the ball. Okay. Sign me up. And it was by far the best decision that I had made, because I came into university at 200 pounds, like 6'3", 200 pounds, just starting to develop with real green still. And I carried the ball for a couple of years, and then I got my start in year 3 and then ran with it. It was on. Didn't stop. Yeah.
When you get to university, is it still in the back of your mind? Like you said earlier about your degree, you're like, I'm never going to use a thing.
Yeah.
Did you know when you got there that, you know, you had to go through the motions, get your schooling taken care of, get something, but you knew, like, in the forefront of your mind was like, I'm going pro. Like, I'm going to do this.
It wasn't like Booby Miles confidence from Friday Night Lights, where it's like it was a signed, sealed, delivered going to the NFL. But it was the goal that was in front of me. And I was determined enough to make sure that I was going to give myself the best chance to accomplish that.
So you're making decisions with that goal in mind.
Yes. So I lighten my course load.
Yep.
Especially in the first half of the year because of football.
Yep.
You know, you're on the football field at, if I remember correctly, you're getting into the locker room around 4, and you're not done till about 9 o'clock. So I wanted to take as much burden off me. And I was never a great student either. Like, I was a C, B student.
Yep.
I had to work extra hard my senior year to get the grades to go to MAC. If I didn't get into the kin program at Western, so they offered me to go through King's College to do kin, and then I could backdoor and still play for Western. And that didn't interest me. So I went social sciences, and first year kind of just generic, took a bunch of different stuff. Went through, decided on anthropology as a major because it was interesting, and found it wasn't as interesting as I thought it was going to be. So then I switched over to geography. I didn't complete my degree by the time I left university in 2005. So I completed my degree while I was playing with the Ticats. I had five or six courses, or not courses, but credits that I needed to earn. So I was,
So you left university early.
Yep.
So and you're like,
I played 4 years, so I didn't use my 5 years of eligibility. I left a year early. So I entered in the CFL and NFL draft in 2005. I didn't get invited to the combine. That was one of my goals. I did get invited. So I guess in my senior year, the goal for me was always to win a national championships with my team. I never really chased individual titles, records, any of that shit. Never really motivated me. I wanted to win a Vanier Cup with the guys that I played with because they were my brothers. And when we did well on the offense, it was always a we. It was our O-line and myself, and I would not have had the success that I had if I had a different O-line. That's 100% for sure. So we had a tremendous senior year. We had a really good junior year. We had a tremendous senior year as an offensive attack. We fell short of advancing to the Vanier, but there was enough interest, and I had proven myself on the field enough that I had gained a lot of attention from scouts.
So you had some stats.
Yes. And I'm not going to be the one. I know I still have one for sure. Maybe two. I think I'm in the 1 and 2 spot for most rushing yards in a season. And this next person behind me is a couple 100 yards behind me. I can't remember, to be honest with you.
You had a year.
I had a big year. I had a couple big years because it was me and then me. And the cool thing was I actually beat one of my dad's records from college too. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Or tied it. But he kicked in college.
No way.
So he was the all-time points leader in the CIS for a long time because he was running the ball and kicking the extra points.
Just double dip.
Which is cheating, in my opinion. No, we had a lot of fun at MAC. We had a lot of fun winning a lot of football games. And I got invited to the East-West Shrine Bowl, which 2 Canadians get invited every year to go down and play in an NCAA All-Star game. And that was my first opportunity. And I went down with a chip on my shoulder because I wanted to play in the NCAA.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show these guys that I could play.
Yeah.
I remember reading an article by an ESPN writer saying that I didn't belong there.
What year was this?
This was in 2004 or 5.
Okay.
And
That must have just...
it just drove me nuts because it was just practice. And I worked hard in practice, but I always had the ability to flip a different switch in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Always. It just, I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but when it comes to game time, I'm a different human being.
Mm-hmm.
And game time came and I did what I did. And I led our team in rushing yards, and I was on the West team. Yes. And I was one of the All-Star nominations. It was a great cohort. I was the opposing running back was Brendan Jacobs, who played for the Giants, and he's like 6'5", that monster
guy.
And it's funny, yeah. In intakes, we're doing a thing, measuring hands. He's like, "Hey, what's going on? What's your name, Jesse? What's your name? What position? Running back." And he looks at me and goes, "Damn, you a big running back." I'm like, "Huh?" I'm looking up at him. I'm 6'3". I'm going, "Huh?"
So to go down there and have that kind of performance,
it felt great.
Yeah.
And there was some people down there. The president of our university, who was a massive football fan at the time and a big supporter of the football program, flew down on his own dime with his wife to watch that game, which was pretty cool.
Yep.
I had my family down there. Mm-hmm. I met some really, really cool people down there. My quarterback. So they break it up into quarters, right? You get to play a quarter essentially. Okay. 4 running backs, 4 quarterbacks. Everybody gets 1 quarter.
Yep.
My quarterback was Ryan Fitzpatrick.
No way.
Yeah. So
crazy.
Yeah. So which was really cool then to see him and what he did.
Yeah.
And he was just a wonderful guy. Hmm. And then I met some people that I didn't like so much down there too.
Yeah. That's all sorts.
All sorts of people. Hmm. And that's when my agent started to let me know, okay, 2 things. A lot of interesting chatter. I'm lobbying to get you into the Senior Bowl now, which is an American only. It's the big all-star game for college. And I was put into the backup position. So I was 5th or 6th on essentially if somebody pulls out or gets sick, I was going to the Senior Bowl. And how do we get you into the combine? So Senior Bowl didn't happen, combine didn't happen. So then we started planning out, well, we have to do a pro day, which is essentially the combine in your own backyard. Right. And scouts come to you. Yep. So went to Toronto in Vaughan. There's an indoor facility in Vaughan. And 7 or 8 scouts were there, which was cool. Carolina, Seattle, Indy, San Diego, Green Bay. Had a few of my teammates there for support, which is amazing. Yeah. And we were still, again, my best friends, and had a great day. Went toe to toe with who was the running backs they were both from Auburn, Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown. So Ronnie Brown was the best running back in the NCAA that year. And I was able to go toe to toe from a stats perspective. Yep. He beat me in bench press by a couple reps, but I got him in 40 shuttle. No way. And I think we had to tie it in the vert, if I remember correctly, but I'll have to look those up. I can move for a big guy. Yeah. Yeah.
Because those are, and to keep up with like the best in the country. Yeah. It's way different.
It was. Anyway, so it was a wild experience.
Yeah. So what happens after you kind of, you go through that process?
Then it's draft day.
Yep.
And I sat in my parents' basement and watched the entire draft both days and just hoping that I was going to get a call throughout, and didn't get drafted. Bothered me, actually. Yeah. That bothered me.
Because you thought
I had done enough.
You'd earned your spot.
I put enough out there to raise enough awareness saying this kid is draftable. Yep. Especially when I can't even remember his name now, but he was a very good college running back from Ohio State University, who ended up getting arrested on gun charges the draft year, and he still got drafted.
So good, yeah.
And that bothered me too. But as soon as the draft ended, the phone started ringing because you can still sign as a free agent. So I got offers from Indy and Seattle, and I chose Seattle. And then was down there the following week or something along those lines, or I can't remember the time difference. But either way, when I was flying down to Seattle to meet the team and to go through some mini camps, I got drafted by the Tiger Catch in the CFL draft in the 6th pick of the first round.
Also, high.
Yep. By Greg Marshall, who my college coach was. And the year I left he got the head coaching job with the Ticats. So he knew me well enough to take a shot on me.
Yep. Which is a risk, right? You go into the NFL, him still like taking a high chance on you.
Yep, definitely.
He knew what he was risking.
And I never really thought about it from his perspective, but he was giving up potential. I mean, or maybe he didn't think I was going to make it. So maybe it wasn't as risky as I thought. Either way. Yeah, training camp was a wild experience. I realized very quickly that I was a camp body. I was there to offer relief. Yep. And maybe if I did something miraculous, I was going to stick around.
You knew right away?
Not right away. But it became more aware as we got deeper and deeper into camp. So got released, went back to the Ticats, finished that year, played football again, had a ton of confidence, got a Eastern Rookie of the Year All-Star nod, or not All-Star, Eastern Rookie of the Year nod, and then signed with the Redskins and went down and was a completely different football player. I was there. I had some more professional reps under my belt. Yep. I was down there the whole off season training with the guys, which made a big difference.
What is that? Dude, I know nothing about it. Obviously, have no experience in this realm.
No, it's okay.
But like the Canadian athletes, there's some studs. There's amazing athletes. You go down in the States and there's just those types of people, but just way
there's
more
a lot more
of them.
Yep.
And everyone's capable. There's just so much. There's many of them down there.
Yes.
And that just so for you to stand out, it's just that much harder. Do they care about Canadian? Like, does it matter where you're from?
I think you need to have somebody in your corner or you don't stand a chance. And I did have a couple people in my corner in Washington, which definitely helped.
Yep.
And it also allowed me just a little more freedom just to play football.
Yep.
And get after it.
Yep.
And I made impressions. It was great. I was receiving feedback constantly, and it's the moment you stop receiving feedback is also when it becomes dangerous, because that's usually mean they're not going to invest in you anymore. Yep. Al Saunders was the offensive coordinator, and it was after this was actually a really exciting moment. You come in, you get taped up, you get your shorts on, you get your shirt on, you go up to the main room for sort of morning. Head coach Gibbs comes in, says a few words, breaks off into offensive defense. And normally Coach Saunders would play a couple clips from the previous offensive session to highlight. And I was on that.
No way. Doing something good. Yeah. Not
Just to clarify. And that was just enough validation for me to be like, keep going. Yeah. Just keep going. Mm-hmm. And that's what I continue to do and just continue to press. I sprained my ankle, had a couple weeks out because of that, unfortunately, and missed a preseason game, but got to play preseason against the Baltimore Ravens and scored a touchdown our scrimmage, played against the Jets, and had some good yards there. Clinton Portis was their starting running back. He ended up getting hurt, and they didn't know if he was going to start the season. So then it was Liddell Betts was the backup, and then me and Rock Cartwright were Rock had been around the NFL for a while. He was a great special teams guy, a really good team guy. Mm-hmm. And then they brought in TJ Duckett, and TJ is a big running back. He was in Atlanta, I believe, the year before that. Yep. Anyway, because of that, I got bumped out. So in week 1 of the regular season, day 1, I got cut. So it was unfortunate. And TJ sat on the bench that year because Clinton was fine, and they went on to play that season. So then back to Hamilton.
Yep.
And I was like, fuck this. I'm going to play football.
Yep.
Stop bouncing around.
Yep.
And finished that season out, and had a good season. Then started the next season off, gangbusters, great games. Not winning a lot of games, but we were putting on some pretty good numbers. And then 3/4 of the way through that season, I'd blown my shoulder out for the first time. That was like my first real big football injury. And then it was just a snowball from there. Tried to come back, maybe came back too soon. Started off the year great again. Was on pace for a 2,000-yard season, and blew it out again. And then by that time, I'm like, okay, Hamilton 4 years, time for a break.
Yep.
They were obviously unsure about my ability to stay healthy. I was unsure about my mental ability to live in the area that I grew up and be able to go and do what I do. So time for a change. That's when bobsleigh called me. And it was in 2009, getting ready to go into the 2010 off season. And they invited me out to a training camp with a couple other athletes, one of which was another CFL player, Chad Rempel. One of which was a track and field 100-meter sprinter, Neville Wright, and Nathan Cross, who was a former bobsledder who was coming back. And it was a bit of an ID camp.
Did you have any aspirations? Was this anywhere in your psyche of
no
Olympics?
No, never thought it would be
Football.
I had won the BLG award in 2005, which was the University Outstanding Athlete Award, and I was up against a couple volleyball players, a basketball player, and guys that were going to go represent Canada. And I remember saying in my speech, I'm envious because I am truly a passionate Canadian. I'm very patriotic towards our country. And I said that in my acceptance speech. I'll never get the feeling to represent my country playing football. And I'm so proud to be in the room with these people. Unless I switch sports. So I fell in love with the opportunity and the sport very quickly.
Yeah.
The bobsleigh team was at World Championships in Lake Placid when we were having our ID camp. And then because it was a home Olympics after World Champs, everybody went to Whistler. Home field advantage, you're trying to get as many runs as you can down that track. And that's the advantage of hosting an Olympics in certain sports is you get those opportunities. Yep. So we then went to Whistler after that, and we got to actually slide for the first time. And I was sliding with Pierre Luders, and I fell in love with the sport, and he was a great mentor because him and I think very similarly in regards to competition.
From the outside, you hear about Pierre Luders and how
I did a project on him when I was in grade 8.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
So he was the guy.
And just
laser focused.
And somewhat frightening and could
Yeah, that's the exterior. Inside he's a teddy bear.
Yeah.
And a really, again, very proud dad, and his girls are coming up in the speed skating scene and are kicking some serious butt. And his wife was a very good track cyclist, again, good pedigree.
So go back to that.
Yeah.
Grade 8?
I remember doing a project in grade 8. I don't know if I have it anywhere anymore, but yeah, it was on bobsledding and Pierre was there for that. So,
and just, dude, of all the things, all the things in grade 8 and all the people and all the sports,
it would have fallen on a winter Olympic cycle because you know how schools generally they'll focus their curriculum around something like that over those 2 weeks. So, and my dad always said he's thought I would be a good bobsledder. And it was actually my dad. I said no originally when they called Matt Hindle.
Because you weren't ready or you just weren't interested?
I was just too focused on, I was so caught up in getting healthy and just playing football I knew I could play football. And my dad kicked me in the ass and said, it's 2 weeks. You're going to go train with some of the best athletes in the world, get exposed to a different sport. This is probably very good for you. Go do it. So I did it, and he was right. And 3 Olympics later, and that's it. But yeah, it was. So I blew my shoulder out in Edmonton.
Yep.
Which takes us back to this point in time where we are driving back and forth between Edmonton and Calgary, spending as much time I can with a push coach in Calgary, going over film, going over the details of how to become a great bobsleigh crewman, because I didn't have much time.
Yep.
and I had my arm in a sling. So I was doing a lot of single leg work, a lot of leg press, as much as I possibly could when I was back in Edmonton, because I was still part of the team and I was going to meetings every day. And when they'd be on the road, I'd be in Calgary, and then I'd be back for therapy and treatment and all that jazz. And season wraps up, and I get on a plane and I fly to Italy.
No way.
Yeah.
Healthy
Enough to start sliding and competing. Yeah. So I had like 3 races to try to make an Olympic team.
And it happened?
It happened. Yeah, I marched in 2010, and it was my only regret was that I didn't start the sport sooner to really appreciate the build up for what a home games means to you. Because after competing in Russia and Sochi after that,
nothing. Not even close.
I am so disappointed in the city's ability to understand the impact a games could have had for 2026.
Dude, 88, like
it's unfortunately because of this. The people that were on the no train, there was people could spread whatever information they wanted to without, any sort of accountability. There were people involved that should have removed themselves because of how they're viewed within the Calgary community. It didn't do it any favors, but we fucked up.
Big miss.
And I'm trying not to swear, but
no, you can have at her.
With the changes that are happening at the IOC level, with the rules that are being put in place about current infrastructure and less need of spending resources, with the ability to spread outside of a city and potentially utilize other resources, with the amount of money that was going to come into the IOC to support the facilities that have been around since '88 that need revitalization, that's now on taxpayers. We fucked up.
I agree, man. It's and I don't follow a lot of politics or anything, but it's amazing that how short-sighted some people can be. Like,
it's easy to say no.
There's no risk in
I remember being a part of Bidco. I was passionate about it. And I wasn't actively involved, but I volunteered to go speak about the impact that it could have and what it had done for me and my family. My wife is an Olympic bobsledder as well. And she was actually working for Bidco. And I remember getting to the point of going to speak at businesses like law firms and public venues, and just hearing the same questions coming up about taxes or about just stuff that didn't make any sense to me. And then I just started saying, finally, listen, I'll tell you what, I'm going to make you $11,000 in 2 weeks. Okay. And this is how we're going to do it. You're going to vote yes. And then you're going to come for me and we're going to set you up on an Airbnb platform, and you can leave and rent your place out for 2 weeks. And when you come back, you'll have your vacation paid for and a little extra money in the pocket. You'll have a better city to live in as well. Can we agree on that? And people are just kind of like, okay.
Poking the bear.
Okay. But people are, well, the taxes are go up. What's happened since?
Dude, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That 3 Olympics.
Yep.
That feeling of like, when you're in that room saying, wow, you guys are really special. And then here you are doing it 3 times. Was it all of it, everything that you imagined it was going to be?
If I walked away with a medal, it would have been more so for sure. Like, I went to Olympics to win a medal, not just to go to participate. So I walked away feeling proud of my accomplishments and proud of how I was as a teammate, but disappointed that I didn't accomplish my goal. It's a team sport too. I have to remember that. And we had some good opportunities and didn't capitalize, or the competition was better that day. That's just really what it comes down to. And I've no regrets on how I prepared. And I think the guys that I slid with, I'm very close with most of them. And we care about each other. We love each other. We trust each other. And we worked hard to try to accomplish a really big goal. And we're very proud of the effort that we put into it for sure.
How do you, chasing a Grey Cup, chasing a gold medal, like, one has a giant team behind you, in front of you, with you, and then the bobsled group is obviously smaller. Is it similar? Like, does it take the same dedication, focus? Is it like Are there similarities to that chase, or are they like different animals?
Different animals.
Yeah.
Different animals. Bobsleigh is a really interesting sport too because of the nature of what you have to do physically. Football, it's a bunch of dogs out there running around. You're going to beat the crap out of each other and you're going to lick your wounds for a day and then you're going to get back to it and do it again. Mm-hmm. Bobsleigh, it's like you're trying to optimize your performance week over week.
Yeah.
So you're peaking at the right time.
Yeah.
So you're trying to chase this peak performance at a certain period of time versus football, which is optimal performance.
Yep.
You want to optimally perform well throughout your entire season and maintain your health, maintain your strength and speed. So you can't, you're never really trying to peak.
Yep.
So you have to take different approaches to it. Because of that, the training is quite different. So you go really, really hard and you're trying to, again, like I trained thousands of hours to improve by hundredths of a second. Mm-hmm. Versus football, it's not measured like that. It's just measured by output, constant output. So it's different from those types of perspectives, but also ego. Ego becomes a big part of it. It's sometimes when you push slow, you can't really see why you push slow. So you have to have really, really good self-awareness where it's like, oh, my timing was off. But then ego comes into play as well. It's like, well, it wasn't me. If nothing is identifiable on the screen, it's easy for big egos to go, well, it was probably you. Well, it was you. But the really good teams that I slid with, it was, who cares who it was? Let's just be better for the next one.
Yep.
Or somebody being like, guys, I messed up my timing. Or I jumped the gun or whatever it is.
Yep.
Versus football, the tape doesn't lie. You drop a ball, you drop a ball. You miss a block, you missed a block. Like you can't escape from it. So the accountability is like, I don't care what your excuse is, that's on you. So it's the dynamic of the interaction on how to accomplish those goals can sometimes be interesting as well.
Just the bobsleigh world just seems like it's just looks so intense. It just looks like it's just like these like wild people. And like you said, to the 10th of a second, they're like these micro moments.
It is, because it's 50 meters of everything you have in the tank. And then the pilot takes over and you hope he has a smooth run.
Yep.
And then you get back up to the top and you do it again. But it is all out.
Yep.
You go ballistic. It's awesome. It's such a rush. It's so much fun.
I cannot imagine.
It's so much fun.
And fits with, when you said you're a different human on game day.
Yeah.
That mentality to bobsled.
Oh, it's perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Just like click
the switch. Yeah.
There we go.
And then shut her down and try to calm everything down after that. But yeah, it's like a Jekyll and Hyde type deal for sure.
Can you get into the out? What that looks like? We touched on it earlier, but I told you I'm very interested in these conversations about when an athlete has to decide to retire, move on, or get forced into it. What's actually happening?
I can only communicate kind of my experience, but I just put myself out there to see what opportunities existed. I had met a mentor in 2013 at one of our fundraising events, and which has now become just a very, very wonderful friendship. But he gave me the opportunity to come in to work at his startup, essentially, a small private equity shop in Calgary, to understand the finance side of private investing in small, mid-size energy service companies. So learned a ton. Small team.
And when this opportunity popped up, interesting. Did it feel like there was like
I had a connection with Chad because at the time he had a very young family. It was literally his kids were playing in a bobsled that we had in front, and he was like, "Oh, is this okay?" I was like, "Yeah, kick the crap out of it." But just his demeanor, and we got to talking, and he then recognized me from football and kind of started having coffees once a month, and then he filled me in on what he was doing with our company Resource, and I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to learn. I just wanted to be a sponge. He quickly recognized some of my strengths and some of my weaknesses and was able to slot me into a position to lean more into the strengths while incrementally getting better at some of the weaknesses.
Yep.
And we did that for 5 years. the companies that we are working with are still doing very well, which is exciting. But because it was energy services, our investors were going to pull back on putting more money in it. And that was really where my focus was finding the next opportunity that we were going to invest in. So I learned a lot over those 5 years. And again, he's a dear friend and still spend a lot of time together. But with that change, I met Jeff Adamson, who we met through the Calgary Sports Institute because he was a former national team wrestler. And he was the co-founder of Skip the Dishes. And they had sold and were starting a new venture, Neo Financial, in Calgary. And there was nothing, what he was trying to do didn't really correlate with what I had been doing for the past few years. But he did say, he's like, come be a part of the sales team. This is now in 2018. And we have our second kid coming and we're jumping into a startup. But it was one of those moments that just seemed, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I know with Helen and I sitting down to figure out, can we make this work? Okay. How are we going to do that? We got to look at our budget. Again, Helen is getting ready to give birth to our son, Rowan. So we worked really hard together to make it work. And 3.5 years later, Neo is now one of the fastest growing companies in Canada. Still a lot of work to do, but surrounded by very, very smart, hardworking, passionate people. It's very rare you get a founding team that has a success that big and that stays together to take on a larger challenge. And that also stuck to me. And then understanding who our backers were. When you have Peter Thiel in your corner, that helps in the financial technology space. And a need for something better than what currently exists. So I've been fortunate to work on a number of projects and lead a number of teams at Neo in my time there. And I'm really excited for what we are going to be doing in the future too.
The team piece. Obviously it's like you're experiencing a team and what actually happens in the business world.
Everything goes back to sport.
It's crazy, right?
Everything. For me.
When you decide that you're going to retire and the transition, were you confident? Were you like, okay, I'm ready to go. This new opportunity seems interesting. And what'd that feel like? I don't want to put any words in your mouth.
From Resource to Neo?
Just to from retiring from the Olympics to the first one.
I knew I was done.
And you were...
I was contemplating retiring after 2014 and I started working with Chad and Resource in 2014. Gotcha. But I had a 5-year plan and it included a slight deviation at that 3-year mark, 2-year mark to make a decision on whether I was going to go back to compete again or not. And I got to that 2-year mark and I was still really hungry. So this is something that we had built out together. So it's not like I surprised it on him. And if I was going to go that route, then I would dial back my work so I can focus on my training, but I was still going to work and I could still handle certain projects when I was on the road. When you're on the road traveling in Europe and competing, there's a lot of downtime. So, and because it's not like it's manual labor, I can sit in my hotel room and do some work and do some research and connect with people and, send some proposals over and things like that. So
takes some effort though.
Effort, but also a positive distraction that keeps my mind focused and not necessarily falling into the Olympic traps. Olympic year traps are the worst and they come up everywhere. People are more tense. People are more concerned. It's their last shot at maybe winning a medal or even making a game. So having that balance, having that distraction helped keep me focused for sure.
So looking back on it, when you decide to retire to where your career is right now, pretty, it's not seamless. It's built on relationships, connections, and just like being put in a right scenario where you can excel. You don't have a degree in any of this. Like, it's just you're just.
Sorry, I cut you off. Yeah.
No, but it's just Could you have seen this?
No.
Mm-hmm.
I've become very, very interested in I've become very interested in two areas of people in business: culture, and the culture of more so the culture of winning teams and successful teams. And there's so many resources out there that dive deep into what makes a great team and what makes a great team successful, and to continue to be successful. But then the attributes of those people as well. Not the skill sets, the attributes. And this is something that is, over the past year, I've learned more and more about, and reading Rich Davini's book, The Attributes, he was a Navy SEALs officer, who essentially was tasked to figure out, why are we not getting the right people in here? And he quickly realized, well, you're looking at it from skills, but we need to be looking at it from attributes. And what attributes are, they can be developed, but they're more ingrained in us, like your grittiness or your resiliency. One of the stories that he tells is this young SEAL recruit shows up, and it's just, all you have to do is just to show competency in the water. You got to swim 25 meters there, 25 meters back. He's like, okay. And he hops in the pool, sinks right to the bottom, marches his way there, marches his way back, comes up, and the officers are like, you didn't swim. He goes, I don't know how to swim. He goes, and the officers go, we can teach you how to swim. Just go over there. But he had what they needed, which was that courage to go into something that this person could not do at all, to accomplish what should be a simple task for a lot of people, and figure a way out how to do it. So he was resourceful enough. He had enough courage to overcome a fear to do something like that. And it's something I've taken into consideration when I am hiring people now too. I want to know more about the attributes, especially in the environment that we're in with Neo, which is a high-paced startup community where we are trying to do something very, very difficult. You need to have a certain type of person there with you to accomplish certain goals. And it doesn't mean that Neo is not going to be, it's just, people will talk about, oh, it was really hard. Yeah, hard things have always been hard, and they're always going to be hard. But it's going to get easier, and it's going to change over time. And what Neo is 2 to 3 years from now is not what it is now. And 10 years from now is not what it is 2 years from now. Like it's going to evolve. Which again goes back to that culture standpoint, like the type of culture you need to do something like that. It's very specific.
Where'd this interest come from? It makes so much sense based on your background, what you experienced, but all of a sudden you have some clarity around this. What was the click?
Because I've always lost.
Right.
I've never won anything.
That's interesting.
I've never won the goal. I've never accomplished the goal, which was always been a team-based goal. Never won the Vanier, never won a Grey Cup, never won an Olympic medal. I have a couple World Championships medals and a couple Crystal Globes, but it's not what you're necessarily, I could say Crystal Globe in this community, people are not going to know what the hell that means. So my goals were like Grey Cup, Vanier, and Olympics. So then understanding, it's hard not to reflect. And that's really where you start to see more and more, what does the good teams do? What did the Eskimos do in the 80s? Like going into their going into the year where they went trying to win their 5th Grey Cup in a row, they went 0-8. And they turned it around and won the Grey Cup that year. How does the New England Patriots do what they did during their run? What makes the Navy SEALs the most efficient, high-performing spec op teams on the planet?
So you go.
I wanted to learn because I wasn't a part of them.
So you're going looking.
I went looking. And I find it very, very interesting. And it's one of those things that I'll probably continue to learn and read about. And what I really like about it, it's not a one size fits all. It's what I did at the bobsleigh team wouldn't necessarily work with a football team. What we did with Neo wouldn't necessarily work with a community-based not-for-profit startup. but you have to figure out what that is to ensure that it is the foundation at which you're operating off of to be successful.
Are you putting are you actually building like a blueprint around this idea? Is it loose ideas in your head that when you're in situations you can like draw on some sort of knowledge?
When I was running teams at Neo, I tried to create a culture within our organization for our teams based off of what we were trying to accomplish. And the goal was to hopefully have that spread amongst other people. And I think there's certain things that adapt, but again, in a high pace environment where things are constantly changing. I mean, in 3 years, you go from 30 people to 800 people. It's hard to put a fence around it. And, through the growth, we've seen changes that make sense for what we were trying to accomplish, the types of people. And some of the, we all make mistakes, and some of the mistakes I've made around how we should be looking at this. So blueprint, yes. In practice, yes. In a smaller degree, not at that large degree. Neo is actually going through a really big culture exercise right now, which is very fun to watch and be a part of. And it is very aligned in where we're at as a company right now too. Because yes, we are a startup. Yes, we are at 800 people, but yes, we are still a startup. Those can seem like contradictory talking points, because generally you think of startup,
it's not 800
guys in a garage, gals in a garage, figuring it out.
Yeah.
But that's the pace at which we operate at.
Cool, man. This has been so cool.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's just just listening to it all. It's just, when you said that I've never won anything, it's just like, it's crazy to think that. And then to actually understand why you're kind of on the path that you're on right now it's fascinating.
Yeah. I'm a competitive person and I like competing, and, I wouldn't say I'm chasing a win, but winning is certainly better than losing. I'll tell you that.
Totally. I end the show with one question.
Sure.
When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
Home now.
How many years has it been?
13. And I can't imagine going back now that we have kids here.
Yeah.
I also think resilient too. And part because I was an athlete for most of the time during, if you want to call it the big boom heydays, when it was just a wild party here, and there was more money flowing through this place than a lot of places. But then having been here through the downturn, the big downturn of energy, the pandemic, the flood in 2013, which I actively was involved with different groups of trying to work together to help.
Yep.
So it's a resilient city for sure. And it's home, and I'm happy it's home.
It's cool, man. Yeah. Cause you could have ended up anywhere.
Yeah, totally.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. A lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.